Hello and welcome to my match footage of the 2023 West Point 2-gun match set up by their combat weapons team. This is my first time at this annual event and it was the perfect opportunity to test out all of my gear that I'll be running on this year's Woodland Brutality. The 8-stage one-day event featured a lot of variety stage to stage, and that really made for a fun day. Above is my gear. I'm running my Ruger American Ranch in 5.56, topped with the Athlon Helos BTR Gen 2 2-12 in a GG&G mount. Inside the pistol holster is my CZP-10C, as well as a full loadout of 4 total pistol mags with 10 round capacity, as well as 5 rifle mags, again with 10 round capacity. Technically for this event, you didn't have to be limited to 10 round capacity because the Army does not care what the state has to say about gun laws. So they were handing out 30 round magazines for people to load out, and full lowers and uppers, and in fact pistols and full-on rifles. They did not care. If you could have showed up to this event with nothing and they could have given you everything to load out and run this entire event. But me being me, I had to be a little bit different. And in fact, I was the only bolt gun out of 96 total shooters. But there is no real surprise there. I like to challenge myself and be a little unique, so here we are. Anyway, with that being said, let's start out with our first stage of the day, which ended up being stage 8. Every stage was a little bit different. This one featured a fully automatic Uzi with 5 rounds in the mag to deploy on this steel target for a time bonus. If you've never shot an Uzi, the irons on it absolutely suck, but it's quite controllable and easy to shoot. The rest of this is basically a pistol stage up until you get to the end where they introduce a Beretta 1301 Tactical from their 3-gun team. Even though I have about 1,000 rounds through my P10C, I still have a lot to learn when it comes to pistol shooting, and it'll be quite apparent at some parts of these stages. We really got lucky with the weather for this event. We just finished a 3-day heat wave where temperatures reached around 90 degrees. Today was around 70-75, but there was a thunderstorm that was scheduled to roll in around 3 p.m. Fortunately, the rain missed us, but the wind did not, and you'll see that pick up later on. The next stage featured a saw, where one hit on steel meant a 10-second time bonus, which was very cool. For the previous stage and this stage, I completely forgot that I had a second set of Ear Pro on top of my head. Honestly, you don't really need them when you're shooting in a field like this, and I took them off and never used them again. This stage, being stage 1, featured steel targets from 100 to about 220 meters.
No fair, it's cheating using a bipod.
We were supposed to engage 4 targets from the left side and 4 targets from the right side. Because I had a bipod, deploying it and making these shots was rather easy, and the wind didn't seem to have picked up downrange just yet. But you could easily hear it through the microphone that the wind is blowing, and we ended up having gusts of around 30 to 40 miles an hour at full value, which made for an interesting time on some of the stages. I'm running this setup with a 50/200 yard zero, so making these shots was as easy as center hold and squeezing. I have that set up because at Woodland it's going to be about the same sort of engagement zones, so it should make for light work. Every time I engaged my pistol, I engaged it as seriously as possible, so I'm not standing in the middle trying to just get every target in sight and shoot as fast as I can. I'm trying to shoot with a purpose, so I take cover as much as possible and use it to my advantage. I feel I did pretty good on the stage, coming 19th out of 96 shooters. The next stage was a fairly similar setup, just a little bit longer, and it also included something a little bit unique. The first several targets were spread out between 100 and 150 meters and were mostly full-size IPSC targets. Beyond that, again at around 200 to 250 meters, were about C-zone size targets, which made for, again, light work because I was able to go prone with my bipod and have basically a perfect zero. As far as the magnification I ran on these stages, every stage varied a little bit differently. The previous stage was around 4x, and this one was around 6x. You don't really need that much magnification to engage targets like that at these distances. In fact, too much magnification in a dynamic situation like this is not a good thing, because you're going to have less field of view and thus lose sight of some of your targets. I wanted to make sure I at least had most of my targets in view at any given time, so this way I wasn't going to miss anything and get a penalty. Because of my overall setup, I cleared this section very fast and had no problems. Once the RSO called the final hit, you dump your rifle, crawl under the barbed wire, pick up 3 grenades, and try to get them in that mortar pit. The first one was horrible, the second one was way worse. I get a good laugh, and just say screw it, and chuck the third one for a hit, so that was a minus 10-second time bonus. After this, it's basically just engage all the steel targets as fast as you can. And what I saw from other people doing at the stage before was you go from the left for the first 3 or 4, and then go all the way to the right to engage the rest. To the keen-eyed viewer, you might notice that others saw that's on the ground, and that might be involved for the next stage. I came out 5th out of 96 shooters on the stage, and was quite impressed with that. Our next stage is where the problem starts to come in. And it's not a problem with any of my gear, it's more or less a problem with myself. The shots with the saw were basically all on target, very satisfying shooting a saw fully automatic like that. Take both ammo cans full of ammunition, you engage 3 Ivan targets about 100 to 150 meters, which are full-size IPSCs, from one position on the VTAC. I screwed up. I should have done this from one of the inside ports. I could not go prone here, and I really should have left the outside positions for my shots at 300 plus meters. I was not in a very stable position, and if you take note of my shots downrange, you'll see the severity of the wind. It not only was a full value wind, but also a switching wind, gusting between 30 to 40 miles an hour, and a 55 grain 5.56 at 300-ish yards is kind of challenging. Sprinting with those ammo cans full of gravel also got my heart rate up to a little bit higher than I was hoping for. I also downloaded my magazines for this thinking, oh, this will be a cakewalk. Well, I got humbled on this stage to the point where I nearly ran out of ammunition. I decided to let one target go at the very end and say screw it and take the time penalty. And in fact, a lot of people started getting wise to that in the later squads. So much so that I witnessed from the squad after us, several people just taking one shot on the 6 steel targets between 250 and 300 meters and just dumping the gun and advancing. It was a 5-second penalty for a target not hit, but a 15-second penalty for a target not engaged. So they figured it would be faster for them to take a shot on all 6 targets, dump the gun, and advance. But that is very gamerish of them, and I take these matches seriously. I'm not looking to get the fastest time. I'm running a bolt gun for Christ's sakes, when everyone else is running AR-15s with 30-round magazines. I like to challenge myself. I want to make myself suffer. So this way, I learn. You don't learn by doing something right. You don't learn by doing something good. You learn by failing, and failing, and failing, and struggling. I finally get the second to last target, but am so frazzled that I forget to pick up the second ammo can to advance to the pistol segment of the stage. I ended up leaving one of those steel targets downrange, but I was really worried about running out of time. I did not want to hit the 180-second par time. I at least wanted to finish the stage without having that buzzer go beep in my ear. So I took the miss and I advanced. Slightly fatigued, frustrated, and upset with myself, I miss a couple more shots here than I would like, but ultimately I come out 48th out of 96 shooters, so this could have ended way worse. Our next stage featured a 2-second time bonus if you decided to read out the 9-line card for an emergency medevac. Every stage basically had a story behind it, and most of them were based on actual real events, so it was really cool to partake and honor those soldiers. Once the 9-line call was done, we were able to move on to the rest of the stage. The wind was too bad, so you can't really hear me talking, so there's almost no sense in watching it. So onwards with the stage. Position 1 required a hit on 3 crazy Ivans between 100 and 200 yards. I got a little cocky there and called my shot good and started advancing before the hit came in. Could have been disastrous if it was a miss, but at the end of the day, you gotta be confident in calling your own shots. The rifle work on the stage was quite easy, but once you neutralize all the targets, you're supposed to put a tourniquet on the leg of your buddy. Once that is strapped down, even though you did not have to turn the windlass because it's a hard plastic dummy, just get it tight enough not to drop below a line or else 30-second time penalty, then drag them across to behind safety, and then engage the last pistol target with 5 rounds. I dropped the first 2 shots, but again, I'm still fairly new to pistol shooting, but I managed a 14th out of 96 place on this stage. Stage 5 featured a little shoot house with a bunch of different weapons and one of the coolest backdrops in history, or at least in my history. Whole goal of this, pick up the shotgun, breach the door, clear everything inside, then load and make ready the MP5 and neutralize the final 2 targets. The clay pigeons on the floor represent IEDs, so you don't want to step on those. Even though it was only, I think, a 5 or 10 second time penalty, where if it was me, it would be more like a minute. The targets here were actually quite hard to hit. The ports in the walls were quite small, and the walls behind them simulated really good cover, so you had to shift yourself around a lot to make sure you didn't leave any targets behind. If you haven't noticed what's on the hill behind the targets, it's a lot of vehicles and tanks. That's right. They use this range to test out anti-vehicle and tank weaponry, which is pretty fucking cool. Almost as cool as finally being able to shoot a fully automatic MP5.
Me too.
I took my time with the stage because I really wanted to enjoy everything that it had to offer, and in fact I did. I came about middle of the pack at 55th out of 96 shooters. The cool weaponry doesn't end there, and we use a training AT4 with a 9mm tracer round to try to hit the tank right in front of us. I'd have to guess that's about 150 to 200 yards, and I was very happy to see that I made that shot. Not just for bragging rights, but also the 10-second time bonus that it gave you. The rest of the stage was quite easy. One shot in each of the colored targets, depending on what color board was under the VTAC barricade. Really straightforward and simple, and really just made for a fast, fun stage. I find that with me shooting pistols, if I'm taking my time, I do well, or if I go as fast as I can, I do really well. There's almost no in between, so definitely something that I have to work on. I came 42nd out of 96 shooters here. The last stage of the day was a commando drill. So, 10 rounds in both your pistol and your rifle. You shoot your rifle till you're out of ammunition, you shoot this to the head, then you transition to your pistol, 10 rounds to the body, then you change your magazine with a magazine with only 2 rounds, dump both rounds in the pistol, then transition back to the rifle, and finish off with the head. They had us all in a line in alphabetical order, so I was basically at the beginning, and my friend N was basically at the end, so I was at least able to get footage of him shooting this. Me running this with my bolt, I came in a 80th out of 96th place, but I did shoot this very well. I only dropped 1 pistol shot, and that was, of course, my first shot because I flinched with the trigger trying to go too fast. The rest of it, I took my time and did what I had to do, and I'm very pleased with my overall results. I might have been fairly low on the list as far as overall speed, but this was not set up for a bolt gun in any stretch of the imagination. I also ran this stage at 2x with my rifle and had no problems getting on target and having very fast follow-up shots, all things considered. But with all that being said, let me get into my final thoughts and overall match breakdown. The match overall was absolutely phenomenal, and this is going to be an annual thing for me. I do plan on coming back here next year. If they ran this twice a year, I'd come 2 times a year, because it was that much fun. It was fairly inexpensive at $150, and even if that price went up, I'd still come back to do this. Even just getting the chance to shoot all the cool weapons that they had would make it worth it for me. But not only that, it's a full day at a very beautiful range, being run extremely well by the Army. The facility was great, all the people were great. They didn't care about basically anything as long as you were being safe. There were several DQs because people were running competition-style holsters for the pistols, and when you're running with ammo cans, stuff does unfortunately loosen up. Fortunately, the gun wasn't loaded when the guy's pistol came out. But that is one of the other takeaways. Matches like this are a great way to test your gear and, of course, test and push yourself. For my gear, my pistol performed perfectly fine, no issues whatsoever. It's mostly me needing to be a little bit better with it. With my rifle and the Athlon Helos BTR Gen 2 2-12, it performed perfectly fine. It's a great little setup and held 0 and just worked. I did drop it once or twice by accident and left it up against some walls, which I probably shouldn't have. But you know what? I didn't lose 0, and I had no problems with it. As far as talking about the scope real quick, the reticle on it is perfect for this style of shooting. The magnification range is basically perfect for this style of shooting, though I did not go above 6x. On that one stage where I had to reach out to 300 meters, I would have loved to have used about 8 to 10x to be able to call my shots with the bad wind. The wind was switching from full value left to full value right, 30 to 40 mile an hour gusts, and it would have made life a lot easier if I was in a better position. But I messed up myself by not allowing to get myself in a better position on the far outside of the VTAC barricade to sit down, pop a squat, and get in a tighter, more substantial position. If I was able to get in a position that was more stable, I'd be able to crank up the magnification a little bit more and be able to spot my shots a little bit better. That absolutely would have allowed me to finish that stage a little bit faster. At 6x, yeah, I was able to see where my shots were going, but not exactly where I was going. I ended up having to hold a full target width to the left or to the right, depending on the wind, to make those shots. So, if I had a little bit more magnification, it would have been a little bit easier for me to spot them a little bit quicker. But again, this is one of the things that we learn at matches. Despite my less than stellar performance on some of the stages, I still managed to finish in the top 1/3 of 96 shooters at this entire event. So that's something I'm very proud of. If there's one change I'd make to my overall setup, I'd probably want to run a bolt action 308. It makes a little bit more sense as a DMR setup and would absolutely say screw you to the wind and slap those targets down so fast that no one would see it coming. And that's basically it. I'm sure there's a couple things that I'm missing that I wanted to talk about, but ultimately it was an awesome time filled with a lot of awesome people. Everyone had a blast. The range was run extremely professionally, and I really wish they hosted more stuff like this because guess what? I'd be there in a heartbeat. So a huge thank you to the US Army for putting this on. They've been doing this for a little bit over a decade, and I really wish I had known about it sooner because I'd have been coming since the very beginning. Next up, thank you all very much for watching. And as always, see you again next time. And a huge thank you to my Patreon providers and my Subscribe subscribers. Without you, this truly wouldn't be possible. If you'd like to support my channel but don't want to join either of those, I completely understand. But you could still help by using my affiliate links in the description below and or like, share, and subscribe as always. Again, thank you very much.